We've all watched characters like Littlefinger or Tywin Lannister pull the strings from behind the scenes, always 2 steps ahead, always in control. But what if I told you their playbook isn't fiction? What if it's over 500 years old? Would you believe there's a 3-step formula that ruthless leaders still use to dominate their enemies, and it works frighteningly fast? Welcome to the world of Niccolò Machiavelli, a man whose ideas still get whispered in war rooms and boardrooms alike. But be warned, these rules come with a cost. Born in 1469 in Florence, Niccolò Machiavelli served as a diplomat and civil servant for the Florentine Republic during intense political upheaval. City-states like Venice, Milan, and papal territories vied for power, while French and Spanish armies roamed the peninsula. In 1512, when the Medici family regained control of Florence, Machiavelli was dismissed, arrested, and tortured on suspicion of conspiracy. Exiled to a small estate, he wrote The Prince in 1513 as a concise guide to statecraft. Rejecting medieval ideals of virtue, he argued that rulers must be pragmatic and sometimes ruthless to maintain stability in a world where alliances shifted overnight. His blunt advice, "It is better to be feared than loved," and "appear virtuous but act in your own interest," sparked scandal and fierce debate. Over the centuries, political leaders and military strategists returned to his principles to navigate modern power struggles. Today, his lessons still spark controversy. The common perception of power is that good wins in the end. Be kind, play fair, trust your allies, right? That's the noble lie we're raised on. But Machiavelli shattered that illusion. He argued that appearances of virtue matter more than actual virtue. People obey those who seem strong and betray those who seem weak. Let's break down his 3 infamous rules to dominate enemies fast. Machiavelli urged rulers to neutralize threats before they grow. He praised Cesare Borgia for acting swiftly. Rather than waiting for conspiracies to ferment, Borgia lured rivals into false negotiations, then eliminated them in one calculated blow. This method minimizes prolonged conflict and uncertainty. In modern politics, we see echoes when candidates expose damaging information about opponents early in a campaign, before the opponent can mount a defense. Proponents say this approach prevents drawn-out scandals. Critics argue it erodes trust, since today's necessary attack becomes tomorrow's political liability, breeding resentment and making long-term alliances impossible. According to Machiavelli, everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. He counseled leaders to present an image of virtue, mercy, generosity, and steadfastness, even if the ruler must act viciously in secret. For instance, Ferdinand of Aragon maintained a reputation for piety while secretly ordering assassinations to secure his reign. Fast forward to social media era. Politicians cultivate authentic Instagram personas, projecting compassion or strength while privately maneuvering in backroom deals. On one hand, this tactic builds public confidence quickly. On the other, it breeds cynicism. When the truth emerges, trust shatters, leaving leaders scrambling to regain credibility. Machiavelli argued that if cruelty is unavoidable, it should be swift and targeted, so the public forgets it quickly and social order is restored. He lauded Borgia's execution of rebellious governors in one night. Fewer reprisals rose afterward because fear stabilized his rule. In contrast, drawn-out purges allow grievances to fester. In modern times, some regimes suppress dissent with a single, high-profile crackdown, jailing a few key dissidents rather than arresting thousands over time, so unrest appears contained. One side claims this prevents widespread chaos, the other sees it as a slippery slope. The moment leaders feel cruelty works, they risk normalizing violence, eventually alienating even loyal followers. But here's where things get complicated. Here's the revelation that flips everything. Machiavelli's 3 rules to dominate enemies work, but they sow the seeds of their own destruction. First, striking first, and striking hard removes immediate threats, but it also builds deep resentment. Cesare Borgia's lightning coup eliminated rivals and inspired fear, yet those same nobles who survived quietly vowed revenge. In modern campaigns, a candidate who unleashes a devastating rumor about their opponent might win the primary. But bitterness lingers among voters and peers. When crises hit, economic downturns or scandals, the very people you crushed first seize the chance to retaliate, unraveling your power. Second, controlling perception can grant short-term loyalty, but the facade eventually cracks. Machiavelli admired leaders who painted themselves as merciful while doing the brutal work in secret. Yet once the truth emerges, say, leaked confidential conversations or exposed backroom deals, the public sees the betrayal, and that veneer of virtue shatters. In politics today, spin doctors who craft perfect Instagram narratives find that one video or tweet can reverse years of careful brand building, leaving leaders scrambling for excuses. Finally, using cruelty surgically instills order, but it dehumanizes both ruler and ruled. Machiavelli's advice to execute disobedient governors in one swift move prevented immediate insurrections, but it also created a culture of fear where loyalty is bought, not earned. In our world, a government that cracks down on a few high-profile protesters may suppress dissent temporarily, but it risks radicalizing moderates, turning isolated grievances into a broader movement. You can read Machiavelli's rules as a cheat code for power, or you can see them as a ticking time bomb. Every act of ruthless efficiency breeds a coalition of enemies waiting to strike back. Ultimately, the twist is this: dominating your enemies in 48 hours might win a battle, but the war for your reputation and longevity is far from over. Machiavelli's 3 rules offer a shortcut to crushing competitors, but they come with a hidden price. When you strike first, you may win the fight, but you also forge enemies who wait for their moment to return the blow. When you control perception, you might win adoring crowds, but one uncovered lie shatters that fragile loyalty. And when you use cruelty surgically, you may instill fear, but you risk building a culture where trust dies. These tactics reshaped empires and boardrooms alike, teaching leaders that power demands boldness. Yet Machiavelli knew that rulers who rely solely on force and facade often find themselves isolated. As he warned, men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, reminding us that appearances can be deceiving. Next time you face a high-stakes conflict, whether in politics, business, or personal life, ask yourself, are you choosing short-term domination or a foundation of genuine respect? Remember, true influence endures not by breaking others, but by inspiring loyalty. Seek wisdom.